I feel like, okay, let's see what comes through today. And
Wait. Oh.
ready?
Yes, I am.
3, 2, 1.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Not Us podcast, hosted by two sisters, myself, Angela, and that hottie over there, my sister. And in fact, my real sister, because someone thought that we were just acting as sisters for this, but my real sister, Sam, where we talk about change and choice, and we celebrate all the messy bits in between.
We're not doctors, gurus, therapists, or witches. The stories and opinions in this episode are our own for entertainment only and subjected to change. Swearing is likely. And remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. I just want to stop you there.
Uh-huh.
In one of our previous episodes, we challenged the word real. But I
Ah,
think what you're trying to say is biologically, blood sisters. And not because we cut our hands and made a pack, but because we shared a womb.
although maybe that's something we could do, along with matching wardrobes. We could just slice our hands and be blood sisters. We're already blood sisters.
We are. We
All
are.
right. Yes. So not my real sister, my biological sister.
She's proud of the fact that there's part of her DNA that runs through me.
It's a bit controlling. So today, what are we talking about today? Sam and I like to have conversations about things that are current in our world or things that we're going through. And her and I have chatted a little bit about something that I've been experiencing for a while now. And I'm sure that a lot of you go through this because it's something that often happens when we are ready for change of some sort. I've been having a little bit of a sense of not quite feeling like myself and really longing to be a little bit more creative. And that's part of how we ended up getting to doing Not Us was, part of that outlet was just to have something creative to do again, having moved from full-time kind of creativity and just into a different type of creativity that I do in my current job. And it's that thing when you change countries, you're still trying to figure out who you be in this new space. I felt like I left parts of myself behind and I didn't know where I'm journeying to. The two felt like they were separating further and further, and it just is making me feel really uncomfortable. So I had a session with the person that I work with on these things, Jane, and she posed this question to me: where do I feel like I have been tamed? Whew. And as she said that, it was like I had this visual of a feral cat being domesticated. And you can make that cat behave, eat its food, stroke it, you can do all of that and it may behave. But if something happens, the feral will come out. And so I feel like my feral is wanting to emerge a little bit. And what that feral for me looks like is physically being more creative, using my voice, using my body, just being a lot more wild womany. And so, as always, Sam and I talk about these things. And this is where this episode's come from. Where have we been tamed, sister?
Gosh, I don't even know where I want to come in with that because I've never really seen myself as the creative type. I've always seen myself as the builder. Although I am creative, I think we assume that creativity is an artist or an actor or a musician or it's something that's outside of you, but you could be an accountant. But when you and I were chatting about the word tamed, what immediately came up for me was good girl syndrome and how the blessing of your 40s and declining hormones or hormones all over the place is that there is a rebellion that stirs up in you a little bit. We get to a point in our life, a midlife crisis or whatever it is, where either out of pure exhaustion, our soul just crying out, hating to be trapped, where we just don't want to play the roles that we've played previously. For me, that feels like being the good girl. And I know as a child I was quite rebellious, not because I wanted to be rebellious, but because that just was my nature. I was quiet, but I would do what I wanted to do and not necessarily what I was told to do or expected to do. But then the conditioning around that is you're rewarded when you're the good girl,
Mhm.
and you're not rewarded when you are not following the rules that have been set out before you. And of course, I love it when my sister says that something's scratching on the inside, and it might mean that she wants to express herself creatively. I just love that when anyone feels that yearning in them to let something out. Of course, that means because Angela is wanting to express herself creatively, my assumption is that it's musically. And then, of course, I spend all of my time singing because not the singer in the family. But if part of her DNA runs through me, it must be the vocal talents.
You'd have to hear the songs that Sam has sent me. I feel like some point in time they need to be snuck into one of these episodes. She's been trying things that opera singers that have been doing this their whole lives, are doing, and there's Sam giving it full steam. I'm very impressed with your creative
So
endeavor.
confidence.
Yeah. We've even done a duet.
We have. My dream coming true of a duet with my sister, the professional singer versus me. Just the love for it.
Fortune takes you everywhere.
So, sis, let me ask you a question. When that question was posed to you, where in your life do you feel tamed?
I've really been blessed with a partner whose craziness, wildness, untamedness matches mine. But I think it's part of changing to a very civilized culture. Not that South Africa is not civilized, but we're a lot more kind of primal, closer to the earth. And it's a little different than in the UK, where things can be a lot more sophisticated or polite. So just by default of that, I think part of coming over here on a contract and being able to have the opportunity to be here definitely makes me feel like I need to play by all the rules. Like I can't, when I say misbehave in public, it's like when some children are in a mall causing havoc and the South African in me wants to say, hey, what are you doing? And call security. Like you can't do those things here. So there's a lot of places where my natural instinct is to calm down. And then I think mostly in the last 2 years, I haven't been doing concerts. I haven't been dancing, those things that allow energy to move around my body, just as part of settling in and having other responsibilities. So I think some of it's societal and just really feeling like I'm still a visitor, the imposter syndrome. And some of it's my own taming and maybe a little bit of lack of taking the bull by the horns, the proverbial bull by the horns, and actually going, right, how much do I desire this? Let me make every effort to make this a priority in my life. And by doing that, you just start going into a bit of a slump, or you can become a little bit like comfortable in the mundane. And my body is now saying, hey, I want to move more. I want to sing more. I want to just create. I want to express myself. This is just needing to physically express myself. And that's probably part of that feral tamedness. We think of things like women running with wolves and just being able to express ourselves loudly. And I don't know, we've also got Lebanese blood in us. Aren't we naturally kind of expressive?
We are. It's interesting that you say a woman running with wolves because I've got the book and I picked it up this weekend. It's a lot of words.
It's a lot.
It's a lot of words. There's apparently a lot of stories in there. I'd love to get to the stories, but sweet Lord, do we have to go through 500 words to get to the juicy bits?
I know.
So I'll let you know how that goes. It'll probably take me 8 years. I mean, I've had the book for 16 years, so it will probably take me 8 years
I have
to
it
read.
here as well. We could do like 15 minutes of reading a day, reading Women with Wolves.
Something that quickly came to mind in terms of just you saying polite society. One of the things that we said when we started this podcast is we wanted it to be authentic.
Yeah.
And we've checked ourselves a couple of times going, oh, there's been times where We're very polished and we mind our P's and Q's. And even on our most recent episode, we played it very central, where we want to be a lot more authentic. And that's not to say that we want to be messy. It's just about going, okay, this is the space that we own, and I own my voice. I think if you had to ask me where I feel the most tamed, it's in my voice and expressing that, because that often gets me into trouble. I've always been a truth teller, even as a child, which was not popular. And it's
Mhm.
funny that we teach children not to lie. And then when the truth is not comfortable, we also don't want them to tell the truth. And I think even as an adult, I struggle, or I have struggled to find a balance in truth telling and what's the balance? And being authentic.
Mm.
Maybe that's why when wanting to express, I want to sing and I want to dance. And I love music with big beats.
Yeah.
Really, it just stirs the soul, where you actually are not dancing nicely. You want to be like wild and free and jumping around and put feathers in your hair and arms up and just crazy dancing. And I love that kind of expression.
And that makes me just think of how women were in tribal spaces where they would dance, whether that was being called witchy or not, but they were celebrated as these powerful beings. And it was normal to see women dancing around fires or in the rain or just being really expressive. When did we tame ourselves? Not only us in our lives now, but as society.
Well, I think from a society perspective, we know that taming means that if you're able to control people and force them into rules and regulations, then you're able to maintain law and order. But what does that mean for us? If we look at society, I think that's why we have so much dis-ease, why we have people that aren't able to express themselves because we're told not to feel, and then we're told, no, we should feel. But if you've been told your entire life that your feelings are not right or too big or too expressive, then you learn to numb that down. And we touched on this previously, where we spoke about when we put the words "to" in front of anything, and for us it was about sensitivity. And often we say women are too emotional, we are too sensitive, we too this, we too that. And that's normally when women are just expressing themselves. I saw a clip the other day about the labeling of women and, calling women lunatics associated to the moon, meaning we are impacted by the planets.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or hysterical, being connected to the ovaries, hormonal imbalances, etc. Where people are closer to nature and respect the cycles and the seasons, you find less dis-ease among those people
Mm.
because they're not bottling themselves up or in or constraining themselves.
Yeah. If you look at, let's use menstrual cycle, women used to, during their moon cycle, that would be the time that they would be often separated from the rest of the tribe, because that was the sacred time to pause during the moon cycle. And our bodies do all of that. It kind of wants to come to a standstill. And it would be the time you would have your sort of visions and then go back to the tribe, share those. So it was really a sacred time. And even part of that taming, it was just kind of restricting women's power and that connection to the earth. And so I think it's been incremental, right? Like little bit by little bit. And that's what happens in our own lives. It's not like we like this one day and then the next day we're completely different. It's just little bits of things that happen along the way that make you stop being wild. Like if I think of myself as a kid, I hated wearing clothes. So I have all of these photographs of myself sitting on the steps, and I'd taken my clothes off just sitting in the garden. And, that was just part of my wildness. It had nothing to do with body. I had no body shame. And then, of course, you learn that that's not right, which, of course, one has to have some boundaries in society. We can't necessarily all be walking around naked. But then somewhere along there, you panic about that for long enough, and then it can turn into body shame, and you need to hide something of yourself. And so all of these things that are kind of part of the natural order, creating order, can become something that becomes things that restrict us in still expressing our freedom. And, in my case, I desire to remove my clothes in every opportunity I get.
Well, I mean, you're a naturist. That's what it is,
True.
right? You didn't come into the world with clothes on, so you wanted to be in your purest form.
Exactly. I was not born with clothes on. So,
No, clothes are optional.
can you remember a time as a kid, maybe, where you felt or that you can recall being tamed?
I was an incredibly shy child, very, very shy. So, I was blessed to have grown up with the wild child who was 18 months younger than me. There was a reason why he was named Dennis the Menace, because he really was a menace. But I was super, super shy. And so I was always forced to be more social. I remember neighbors having a party downstairs and me not wanting to go without my mother and crying on the stairs because I wanted to be there, but I was so shy. And unless she was holding my hand, I wouldn't go to the party. Of course, the lunatic younger brother was in among everyone having the best time. So, I mean, that might not necessarily be taming, but my natural energy was, and even now, initially meeting me, I'm quite reserved and I am observant. And I think it's because I hate using labels, but I am sensitive. And so I'm quite empathic. My approach is to first suss out what's going on before I invest my energy. Now, I have learned to be different. And I think that's a lot from career, where I've had to force myself into positions of being bold and leading first and then observing later. But I guess that's the memory that comes up first is not necessarily being tamed because I was wild, but because my natural personality is reserved. And then growing up in a family that's quite bold,
Mm.
quite loud, etc., and not necessarily being the loudest in the family, and then nestled between two siblings.
Mm. It's like middle child syndrome.
Absolutely not.
That's why when I came back into your life, you were no longer the middle child, and so you could erupt with creativity and freedom.
Thank God for you.
I think of just on the subtle ways, and I guess the question is, what are the subtle ways in society that we find ourselves being tamed? And one of them that comes to my mind is even like the things you wear or how you wear your hair and at certain ages and times in your life. So if I think of like me with my mermaid hair, I have had my hairdresser in South Africa, who's brilliant and I love her. But she'd be like, you cannot have long hair when you're 50. And if you look even on like social media, there's these things like how to wear your makeup in your 20s and your 30s and your 40s and your 50s, and how to wear your hair. And it's actually like, well, no, what if I just want to be a freaking mermaid until I'm 110 because I can? Or who says that wearing tights and a short skirt is only reserved for 20-year-olds? So I think society and trends can tame us in so many ways. And it is one of the things I love about living in the UK. People are a lot more free in how they dress. And I really love that. What other ways do you think that we get tamed?
Well, you said subtle. I think a lot of the stuff is not subtle. It's just part of our conditioning. So we are conditioned to believe that by this certain age, you've got to act a certain way, you've got to look a certain way. And I have spent way too many hours looking at how I should be dressing for my age and then going, I'm not dressing like that. What the fuck? But still feeling that we have to change. I think that we are conditioned and we get to see so much of it that we think it's subtle, but it's actually just this constant conditioning of this is your role, this is your value. Like when we think about aging, there's so much pressure in how do we fight aging and what will our lives look like in 5 years' time or when I'm 50 or 60. And then we have a generation that's challenging that because a 60-year-old of our generation is not the same as a generation or two ago.
Yeah.
And there's pressure that comes with that because we want to still look good. I mean, there's no greater compliment than someone saying, "Oh, I didn't think you were that age. I thought you were much younger." But then why is it not okay to look our age and feel our age? Look at Sarah Jessica Parker, who is under so much scrutiny because of her looking her age. I mean, just the messaging around that it's not okay for a woman, I think she's 60, to have lines on her face and for her to choose not to have cosmetic surgery or Botox. And we have, I'll speak for myself. I may have made a comment that it is her duty to make sure that she looks her best. But why?
For
Because
who?
that's the conditioning that I am buying into. That's at 48, I shouldn't have any lines on my forehead or around my eyes. But why? Why can't we celebrate being beautiful at those ages? Because there are many women that are beautiful, that are aging naturally. I'm never going to allow gray to be my hair color. It's just not happening. It's like I'm never wearing brown. When
Or
you
orange.
see me like deciding that I'm going gray and I'm wearing brown, you know that I've given up on life. I've given up on my own restrictions and conditions.
I thought you had brown and orange. Are there any others that I need that are segments?
Brown, orange,
Else?
sky blue. These are colors that I'm offended by. That's why I stick to black. Just stick to the primary color black.
The color of joy, black.
Color of joy.
It's a fine line, knowing how to fit into society, how to fit into going to a job that requires a certain etiquette and a certain way of looking and being, and being true to yourself. How do we find that balance? I suppose that's the magic question.
Well, what came up to me as you said that was, again, the contradictions of the stories that we get told. It doesn't mean that we have to lose what makes us who we are. And we chatted about this earlier on where I said, for me, playing football was such a important part of my life because it was a really great physical avenue for me to release anger, be competitive, be fit, really connect with my body, be in a team environment. Now I'm like, when people find something that really brings them great joy, hold on to that and do that for as long as possible. I think what we're calling the taming is actually the essence.
Yeah.
You protect that essence of who you are, whether that is being the person that uses their voice to speak about what people don't want to speak about, or using your voice to bring joy and emotions to people. I think that's what the taming is when we give up that light that actually makes us who we are.
Yeah.
And we do it for a variety of reasons. We do it to be accepted. We do it because we don't want to shine, because we need to be smaller, because we don't want to make other people feel uncomfortable. Often it's not often. I think it's always external to us.
It makes me think about how people tame or break an elephant for the circus. And for those of you who don't know this, when the elephant is young, they will use quite a big boulder to put in the ground and tie the elephant to it so that it can't move. And as the training goes along, that peg becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. But over time, the elephant thinks that it can't it can't pull away. So even when it's just a tiny peg, and of course it could just step away and pull it out, the elephant doesn't move anywhere. It's just that it has been trained so hard to go, in this environment, I am weak. And so it makes me think of like what you're saying, even if we are in our jobs, wherever that might be, where we have to show up in a certain way, is to make sure that somehow we're balancing that out with still staying true to our feralness, to that wildness within ourselves, and finding activities or ways of expressing that so that we don't lose it, so that we are constantly reminded of who we be outside of how we sometimes need to show up in society.
Yeah. There's a great analogy of three monkeys were put into a cage, and there was a bunch of bananas. And whenever one of the monkeys went to the bananas, they would be hosed down. And so they knew not to go to the bananas because otherwise they would be hosed. And so they remove one of the monkeys, and there's two monkeys left, and they put a new monkey in. And so the new monkey then goes to the bananas, and before he gets to the bananas, the other two monkeys attack him. So they remove one of the other monkeys, and so now you've got two new monkeys and one original monkey. And the new monkey goes to the bananas, the other two attack. They remove the last original monkey, and so eventually none of the monkeys go near the bananas because they know that the bananas are no longer safe. And that's what conditioning looks like.
That's a great example, actually. And it makes me think of how important it is to surround ourselves with the right people in our lives. Because, I mean, I'm fortunate. I have you, I have other friends like Petra, all the witchy ones who we can be wild and untamed and, in our conversation and in how we show up. But if you don't have anyone in your life that allows you that freedom to just be your authentic wild self, you can absolutely start dimming that light in such a way that you can't find it again.
Well, sis, I think it starts with us, right? You've got to want to protect that wildness
Yeah.
and that light. And then you're going to find the right people who also protect that light within themselves. And that's the interesting part, I think, about getting to know yourself a little bit better, is just what's important to you. And for me, it's authenticity. So be authentic, whatever that might look like. If you are reserved, fantastic. Let's celebrate your reservedness, because I'm sure there's great observation that comes from, being slightly out. If you're wild and crazy and you want to do all of these adventurous stuff, fantastic. I'm happy to hear all about the about the adventures. I will go on a couple, but not like too random. Like, we don't need to be in a house full of cats. I don't need to be out in nature. Like, I do not need to be out in the wild.
Feral cat was probably not the best example to use around you and your cat phobia.
I loved it. I loved the fact that, well, because also you played a cat, so I just seen you on stage as a cat.
Ah. Oh my gosh. So it also makes me think of something that came up in my conversation with Jane, and that was around, as we go through menopause and perimenopause, and we start becoming the wiser version of ourselves, depending on how far you are on your journey of understanding what menopause is all about. And we have done an episode on this, and I'm sure we will do more. But this phase of becoming, much like puberty, allows you to move from being a child into a woman. This takes us into another part of our lives. And I was saying that I felt like I've left a part of myself behind. And now I don't want to feel like I need to drag her along into whoever I'm becoming, just because, when people talk about like, oh, I did this and this achievement and this in my life, and I was this, and, we have these labels that we've assigned to ourselves. And then when you ask them how long ago it is, it's like 50 years ago. So I was just feeling like, I don't want to drag that doesn't need to come along with me. And the observation that Jane gave to me was like, you never separate yourself from who you are. Those parts always travel with you. So as we are continuing this journey of becoming, all of you goes with, other parts of you just get highlighted more, but you never really leave yourself behind. You sometimes just have to remind yourself of that essence of who you be and finding ways to keep that alive.
There's a scratching in me. My feral cat is going, I want to know more. So can I ask you to be more specific? Which part of you do you feel you want to bring forward or that you've left a little bit behind?
I suppose for me, it's having, having had a full-time career as a performer, and now I'm in the last 2 years, I haven't even done a concert, which is very foreign. It's foreign land for me. But I don't want to. I've had a couple of invitations to do bits and pieces, and although I don't necessarily have a desire to do that full time, I'm very happy right now with what I'm doing. I'm considering doing a little bit more of that, adding some concerts in, getting back into some dance classes and doing that. And then there's parts of my brain that goes, well, you're too old now, or, you've left that behind, or musicals could be a young person's game, all of those voices. And also, am I still trying to be something that I no longer am, or like all of that rubbish, which I know isn't my own thinking because I don't think like that as a person, but there's just those parts that go, I can't anymore. I won't know how, even though it's like it's natural as breathing to me. I feel like I don't know how. And and then I'm like, and am I trying to force something? Because sometimes there are parts of yourself that you feel like, okay, I've shed that skin. I want to move on. So I was really struggling with, is that a skin that I've shed? Or is it intrinsically part of how I be as a person? So yeah, I saw all kinds of triggering happening for you there. Would you like to
Oh,
would you like
I rely on you not to ever say that you are too old. Like the
I
only
know.
person that's allowed to make any commentary about you being older is me. And that's because you invited that punishment onto yourself. When you asked me about if I was 49 last year,
I
I was
know.
like, no, I'm still 6 years younger than you, unless you're turning 55. But and I'm not your therapist. I might be completely biased here. Not your therapist, the person that you speak to. I don't think the musical part of you is your skin. I think that is the muscles of who you are. And whether you're doing that 3 times a year or through concert or through whatever it is, I think it is something in you that needs to be exercised because I don't think it's your skin. I think the skin is like your relationships. I think it's the part of like where you find yourself. But I think when you have that talent and it's been part of you since a little girl, that is not that's not your skin. That's your heart. That's your muscle. That's I don't want to say your reason for being, but that is your gift that you give. I remember watching you perform Marilyn in Melville years ago. And one of my favorite memories of you performing is watching a friend cry. One of my friends came with to watch you perform and was one of her first times watching you perform and she cried. Just seeing how you can move people with your ability to deliver a performance through your voice. And I mean, your body, we're keeping this above board.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, for me, I don't think it is. I don't think it is your skin. I think it's deeper than that.
Well, thank you. I love that analogy, actually. What is your skin and what is your muscle? That's really, and what should be exercised and what should be exorcised.
Yeah. Well, I
Love
mean,
it.
you're not exorcising your muscle.
Exorcise
And
the thoughts out of one's brain. Yeah, Thank you for that.
Sis, we are younger. Yes, we will continue to age, right? But I think that our 50s are younger than they've ever been. So,
I
like 2 generations ago, people were dying at the age of 60, and that's why it made sense for people to retire at like 63, 65, right? Because people were dying before they were retiring. Now we're looking at, from a political perspective, especially here in Europe, you're looking at France where the retirement age is 59 and they're trying to push that up by 2 years. People are living way beyond 59. And so it doesn't make sense for you to be retiring so young. And so when we look at where we stand as women in their late 40s and early 50s, we are going to have to create new paths. If I think about like the musicals that you've done, they've all been young musicals with the exception of Norman Desmond. They've been like younger characters,
mm,
but we have to create characters that are older. And what does that look like? And not these one-off shows where it's like 3 people, but really, how do we start to celebrate people aging? Not only women aging, but how do we start to celebrate aging? Because if we're living to 80 and 90 years old, our 40s and 50s are the younger parts of our lives.
yeah,
And God willing, we are healthy and we can enjoy the longevity. I mean, I always say, like, what's the point of living to 200 if you can't live with vitality and, a full life? Then I'd
yeah,
rather like let me go early. And so I think we are at an interesting junction that we are younger at these ages than generations before us. We have the possibilities of living healthier for longer. And so we simply cannot follow the rules that have been placed before us. We have to chart a new ground or new paths. And sometimes that means that we've got to be the rebels. And so please do not ever use the words, am I too old? Only I'm allowed to say you're old. Do not say that. And I know I feel that. I often feel like, well, like, I mean, I'll be 49 this year, and there's all of this like stuff that you have to believe. And why? Who
yeah,
said? Yes, that's the way it's been done for generations. But this is also like, this is when people died at our age. Well, our life is different. So why are we trying to fit into a mold that isn't ours?
yeah.
See, there's that voice.
Truth, truth. Preach, sister.
Now, if I could only find a way of delivering my message in a softer, gentler, nicer way.
No,
But you
why?
see, that's the
That's
challenge
what
that
I'm
I
here
have.
for.
Like, why do you have to say it gentler and nicer? And why can't you be passionate about the topics that you're passionate about? Why is passion seen as aggression?
Yeah,
Because there's not an ounce of aggression. There's just going, fuck that. Why do we have to do that? And it's, about inspiring me to go, no, fuck that, on
yeah,
a cellular level, not only on the like the mental level.
yeah,
Because that's the conditioning, sis, is that it's so subtle. We've been told it for so long. And I can imagine in your environment, it would have been, as an actress, you only have a certain amount of time that you can perform these roles. And so from a young actor, you're being told there's a limit. And I've seen this, like often Hollywood does like a round table with different actresses and how they're having to challenge roles for actresses because most actresses, their careers were over by the time they were 35.
yeah,
I mean, 35, I look back and go, 35 is when you're peaking.
yeah.
But why can't it be 45 when you're peaking? Why
Yeah,
can't it be 55 when you're peaking?
and if you look at incredible women like Meryl Streep and Helen Mirren and Dame Judi Dench, who's my hero, they just go on. They're timeless and they continue on and on and on. So you're absolutely right. And it's a strange thought for me to have because I'm absolutely not someone who buys into age in any shape or form. But it's those subtle little voices that you may not say them, but somewhere those little distractors that
Yeah.
play in your mind. So then I wonder, I love this term you used when we spoke about this episode, is how do we rewild ourselves? I absolutely love that term.
Yeah. I think for me, it's about bringing the awareness. Like, what is it that's scratching at your belly? Whether it's a desire or a thought or whatever it is, like just allowing that to surface. I mean, you speak to someone, I speak to you, or to
Because
myself. I mean, I first speak to myself.
actually to me.
But I also think it's about having people around you. And it feels like this is a little bit of preaching. But for me, what works for me is having people around you that are going to challenge you on the stories that you're telling yourself. It's like we said last week, like there's ways of challenging people. And often when I'm speaking to people and giving advice, I'm giving myself that same advice because in that engagement, I am learning things about myself and challenging myself in my own beliefs and my own thoughts. And this is the great thing about when you find people that you can have deep conversations with. So I think the point for me is for you and I, it's about living a big and sexy life, whatever that might look like. And that comes with a lot of shit, that comes with like dealing with heartache and dealing with the stuff that you don't always want to deal with, dealing with pain. I actually was thinking the other night, I wish I just was happy with life as it is. It does not need to be better. Can just be as is. But that's not me. Like even if we move into a property, I'm always looking about how it can be improved, etc. So I think depending on where you are at in your life, and I think if you're similar to us, then it is about finding people that you can have real conversations with, and conversations where people are going to call you out on your bullshit, because we're really good at bullshitting ourselves. I am the queen at bullshitting myself.
Yeah. I think also as part of our rewilding, it's to, yes, we're saying that we don't leave anything behind, but sometimes there's stuff that we want to shed that no longer serves us as we are becoming. And it's to be brave enough and to sit and look at your life and say, does this work for me? What would I like? And if we have a vision of the life that we desire, what is holding us back from that? And then really being whatever it could be, disciplined, getting your friends to hold you accountable, whatever that might be, to take those steps towards creating the life that you desire, regardless of what general society will think of you. Because there's always going to be someone with a judgment. We really have to choose for ourselves.
Yeah, I think it's about releasing some of the labels. And sometimes those labels are the things that make people like us.
Mm.
So I know for me, it's like I'm on this mission to get rid of the good girl. But that's really hard for me.
Yeah.
It's hard for me not to be the good girl, because when I've shone, I've always found a lot more judgment and pain. So whether that was becoming house captain 2 years in a row, because I was the top athlete in primary schools. But what that meant is the girls ahead of me felt it was necessary to take that achievement up with me. Fortunately, I had an older sister and a younger brother, so I was quite comfortable with conflict. And so I was just like, well, I didn't make the decision, take it up. But it was something I was thinking about the past 2 days, was playing small so that the spotlight wasn't on me, because when it was on me, I didn't have a good experience. There would normally be some level of rejection. And so I try to find a way of being the good girl. And the good girl for me is being of service, being kind, not to say that I'm not going to be kind, being all of these things. But what I realized in conversation with a friend last week is that the first person you need to be kind to is yourself.
Yeah.
And when you are kind to yourself, you have boundaries, you protect what is important to you. So whether that is a morning routine or an evening routine, or if that is 3 times a year, I'm on stage performing with my
Mm.
sister in audience,
I was going to
or
say,
doing a duet with my sister.
there you
She's
go.
up for it. She's up for it. You know, we'll continue with our singing training, our vocal warm-ups in the morning, whatever that might be, because when you are kind to yourself first and you see yourself as one, then you are able to be kind and you're able to be in service to others. So for me, it's about breaking that good girl mold of I need to be of service to everyone else and make sure everyone else around me is comfortable before I take care of myself. And I think that's the rewilding in me.
One of the times that I feel my most like myself is actually when I'm in nature and taking time out and hugging a tree and just sort of planting myself in, and sometimes that's if you're in water, if you're swimming or anything like that, because nature doesn't judge us. We're just part of it. And so for me, if I'm struggling and I can't get in touch with myself, or I don't feel like myself, I find one of the really helpful things to do is exactly that. Just get into nature, ground, whatever, take your shoes off, swim in the sea or in the Thames if you dare. Yeah. Strong opinion on that. It's fine. Whatever it is, just to really feel nature, because that's the space where you can discover that yummy feeling of being yourself. And then you can create from there, expand from there, and say, okay, now what do I want to create more of?
I like that you expanded on that because for me, I always go, okay, nature means I've got to go and hug a tree. I don't
Mm,
want to be there. But put me in water and I am in that water for 8, 9 hours.
yeah.
Um, okay, not a sea, not a lake, but a swimming pool. Yeah, I'm there.
A womb.
A room. But even a bath. Like I take an hour bath every night.
Because every time I phone you, you're in the bath.
Exactly. I mean, if we're not twinsing with our outfit, it's like Angela will contact me as I'm getting into that bath or
Yeah.
as I'm getting out of the bath. It's timing. We're on the same frequency. But also in terms of like what makes me feel my most self is when I've had a competitive outlet.
Mm.
So it was soccer for me. Now it's become padel. And that's actually a good idea for me to do that this week because I haven't really been doing it. Um, it just allows like all of the pent up energy to it finds a way of placing it somewhere.
Yeah.
So I think it's about finding what your outlet needs to be, whether that is sports or nature or performance or art or whatever that looks like. We
Yeah.
have to feed ourselves.
I had a great conversation yesterday with one of the dance students from Lipper, who's a friend of mine, and she was asking me about the state called flow. That's basically really being that ecstasy of being in the moment. But the terminology has been around, but it's just had a popular bout on TikTok, I think. If we live our lives in flow, like what does that mean? It means, for me anyway, being very present, being really connected and grounded, and being connected to my breath, like being really present in your life. And that's when you have the opportunity to experience ecstasy. Because if you are living ahead of yourself or behind in the future or in the past, you can never be completely present with yourself. So it's very hard then to be in flow. And I was relating it to dancing for me, or as a performer, when you've got all the structures around you, you know what you need to do. So if we're showing up in life, it could be, you're going into the world today, you're dressed, you've got everything that you need, prepped yourself, you've done your meditations, or whatever it might be, however you prep for your day. And then being completely present in the creative world, that means I can now just completely embody myself and allow life to flow through me. And then you can really experience that complete high that people meditate to achieve. It's achievable to us every single day. if we are completely present in our
Yeah.
lives. So wonder if part of that rewilding of taking back that part of ourselves can only be achieved, and the ecstasy of that can only be achieved by being completely present in our lives. Well, it would be great if we could do it 24/7, but as much as we can.
Sis, has this conversation helped you with the question that was posed to you? Do you have a little bit more viewpoint
Yeah.
or an answer or more questions?
Yeah, it has, in that for me, it's really, I need to just get my ass in gear and actually just do the things that bring me the most joy. There's always something that I'm going to find a good reason why I can't time this busyness, whatever it might be. But in order to start anything, you have to start somewhere, just start. And so it's kind of just given me a little bit more freedom to go, just do what brings you joy. You don't have to do it forever. Do what brings you joy for now. So
Yeah. And it might bring you joy for this season, and next season it might not, and it might come around again.
yeah. And I might start it and go, that brought me joy, but now I'm
Yeah.
okay. I want to try something else.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you.
Anytime.
Thank you.
The guru is here.
It's about the only time in my life where she'll not tell me that I'm old.
The only person that's going to tell you you're old is me. And I don't say you're old, I say you're older. Older. And I rely on you to not buy in to the age agenda.
That's right. All I just say on that, we have no resistance to getting old. Look, I'm not going to lie. Like, I love a splash of Botox, and that's only because I look really angry when I haven't had it. But we do celebrate, Sam and I absolutely celebrate the wise ones, those women who are getting in their 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. I love spending time with people that are older than me because they've lived and they've got so much to share and so much to give. And so just in case, we're trying to sound like we are trying to stay young in years, whatever, the magic thing is to look timeless, like Sophia Loren.
No, but growing old is a choice. You can age, but growing old is a choice. And we choose not to grow old. And that's spirit and energy.
You are
And
full of energy today. Full
I
of
promise you,
my God.
I want to age disgracefully. In my heart, that's what I want. So if we could just uncondition me so that I can live my truth, which is let me be a purple-headed,
That's not gray.
eccentric freak of an old lady walking down the road.
Absolutely. The wild version of you.
See that conservative thread we just need to like pull out.
Yeah.
Just need to get rid of it so that I can be my authentic self.
Yes.
Okay, sis, let's wrap it up.
Yeah.
To rewilding.
To rewild. It's disgusting.
Salute.
Oh. Ugh.
Thank you for watching. Email us with comments, suggestions, or feedback on notaspodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on all of the socials, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram, and watch us on YouTube and listen to us on Spotify and Apple Podcast. Until we chat again. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.